We arrived in Saigon, or Ho Chi Minh City, at the time of the Tet, which is the country's new year, so there was no traffic and dragon dancers were performing outside the hotel.
Our first outing was to the War Museum, where we saw news pictures from that sad time and American hardware.
This is the presidential palace, but there's no longer a president. The French church, but the French have gone. And the post office, which looks remarkably like a railway station.
Next, to the Flower Festival, with lots of impressive bonsais. Happy crowds for celebrating Lunar New Year. Parking your bike here isn't easy.
In the evening, we enjoyed iced coffee and later went to misnamed Walking Street, where we had a good meal in the Zaytun restaurant. Next day, we visited the tunnels, saw the ventilation holes, which would be invisible in jungle growth, nasty traps for GIs,
and saw how the Viet Cong disappeared.
Open the trapdoor up, leave it out, just about 1 meter deep inside. You know, they have some of the low step there. Stand up, put the leaves surrounding, that the whole entrance, and put on the top, of the lead, top lead. Hold it up, keep your hands, arms up, and then get your body down to close it. Bye-bye. See him later in Saigon River, in the Mon border next month.
Later, as the traffic was building up, we returned to Walking Street, where everything was stopped for the Dragon Dancers performance.
We stopped off at this Buddhist temple en route to the ship.
Become mature, they refuse to get married.
When we arrived, cruise director Mark explained the itinerary. Then, after dinner, we were entertained by local musicians.
The Mekong is not yet ready for cruise ships, so most trips ashore involve the use of a small boat, and even these have problems landing.
Here at Sardek, we visited this church of a religion invented to incorporate the best doctrines of all faiths. Unlikely prophets include Victor Hugo, writer of Les Mis. Colourful is happy. Even the hearses are colourful. A walk through the market took us to the Chinese house made famous by Margarita Duras in her book The Lovers. Then we returned to our ship for a coffee, a beer and a gin and tonic.
A slightly worrying cycle-rickshaw ride through the usual traffic chaos took us to this factory where beach maps are woven on machines like this.
Then, after a smelly stop at one of the many fish farms where the fish were being harvested today, we returned for lunch. Later, we made Vietnamese spring rolls while we sailed on.
And then enjoyed dinner as we arrived in Phnom Penh. The elected king of Cambodia isn't wealthy, and the palace belongs to the state. It's a showpiece built to impress citizens and visitors.
These are the royal robes in a glass box.
Joyce wasn't tempted to buy anything at the Central Market.
This chilling detention centre is left so that victims of Khmer Rouge will not be forgotten. After dinner, we were entertained by local dancers. Then, to end a very full day, we rode in a convoy of tuk-tuks to the central square with its monument celebrating independence from France.
Next morning, we stopped off at a village school, partly sponsored by cruise passengers, this week by us.
How many percent of Cambodian kids can afford to go to school? It's only 86%. In the law, they said that every parent needs to send their kid to go to school, but in the reality, it's not. There are a lot of reasons.
We chatted with a lovely 12-year-old girl called Maya. Tuk-tuks then transported us to a silk farm and factory. We didn't see a factory, just these ladies spinning and weaving silk as it was done in the past. We returned to the ship and boarded from the river bank.
Further down the river next morning, we disembarked the same way.
A bus took us to Udon, the ancient capital of Cambodia, where in the Vipassana centre the whole group sat cross-legged to be ceremonially blessed by Buddhist monks. Next, at Kampong Tralak, we visited an ancient pagoda which survived the Khmer Rouge period.
We then returned to the ship on bullock carts.
Definitely not recommended. The guides went on the tuk-tuk. As our ship set off, the locals were returning home on the small crowded ferry.
After dinner that evening, the crew put on a show. Today we are in Kampong Chang to see the market. I think the local transport more interesting.
On the boat later, we pass houses on stilts and the floating village.
Next day we left our floating hotel and travelled by bus to Siem Reap. At a roadside market, our guide seemed to enjoy eating a tarantula.
So firm. Yeah.
In Siem Reap, we ate at a downtown restaurant with Steve and Ruth and enjoyed busy pub street.
It's one of the largest Hindu temple, and this temple is built in 1100 in the reign of King Suryavarman II. He built this temple dedicated to Hindu god, and also he used this temple as his own mausoleum back to those days. But among the Angkor temples,
Next day at Angkor Wat, we walked up to the temple and filed through the galleries snapping pictures. Geoff joined the brave or stupid and climbed the precariously steep steps to the top level.
It's like a cloister with Buddhist shrines. It's even more precarious coming down.
After leaving Angkor Wat, we walked down the broad pathway and over the bridge of Buddhas to Angkor Thom,
to find amazing relief carvings depicting battle scenes.
We left through this gate to find lions guarding the pathway. Finally, we toured picturesque Tar Prom Temple.
Known locally as the Tomb Raiders Temple. This is what happens if you don't weed between the cracks.
The dinner and show on the last night was spoiled because you cannot eat and watch a show at the same time.